We're going to be working in this video on Illustrator's 3D Revolve, and then we're going to map an image onto this 3D object. Now this works great for packaging, or if you want some sort of symbol or design on a 3D object. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to View and Show Grid. The reason why we're doing this is these are going to be pretty symmetrical objects. I also want to go to View and Snap to Grid. Now the grid structure right now looks like they're a grid line every inch with maybe 8-inch subdivisions. Yes. And sometimes I want to tighten that up a bit, especially if I'm working on curved objects. If you're working on square objects, probably not a big deal. So I'm going to go to Illustrator, go to Preferences, and Grids and Guides. I'm going to subdivide mine are every half an inch with 8 subdivisions, so there's already kind of 16, but I'm going to go ahead and make it really, let's make it 1 inch and then 16 subdivisions within the inch. I'm going to hit OK. You're not going to see a lot of change other than the lines got wider. Now, in the demonstration I'm going to do now, I'm going to do a bottle that's not too different than, say, an 8-hour energy drink bottle. Now, the thing that you're going to have to do is we're going to actually draw the contour of the plastic of the bottle. So let's say that this bottle, I'll start at the bottom of the bottle. Let's say this bottle, the center of it is closed, and let's say the center of that bottle starts there. And let's say that the edge of the bottle is here. And then up here, because we need to think about this label, let's say the bottle is maybe about as tall as this, about 4 inches tall, and it curves right here like a little shoulder, and the cap will go over here. Well, now I do need to think when I'm drawing this about where this label is going to go, so I'm going to just add an anchor point here and here. That's going to hopefully create a working surface in 3D where it will kind of restrict the label into that area. Now I'm going to create the curve of the bottle. I can always go in and adjust this if I need to. And then the neck of the bottle might be right about here. And excuse me. Let me zoom in. I will have to adjust that curve. Let's say the thickness of this plastic, let me pick up where I left off. The thickness of the plastic is about, let's say, 1 segment here. Okay? So you're actually drawing the thickness of the plastic versus the shape of the overall shape of the bottle. Okay? I know that's going to take some getting used to thinking about that this way, but that's what we're going to have to do. Now I'm coming down and I'm going to complete this path. Okay, so we are talking about the shape of half of the material of a bottle. Now I'm going to fill that with black, stroke of nothing, and I'm going to go in, I'm going to modify this area here that looks kind of wonky. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to turn off Snap to Guide. I want this to look a lot more decent than what it is now. There we go. Modify this just a tad. And we're almost there. I think this needs to come down just a tad bit. There we go. Okay, so now that looks pretty good. We're going to see how well this looks revolved. I'm going to go to View, Snap to Grid, turn it on again because I'll probably use it. Now I can turn the grid off now because I'm about ready to do the revolve. Before I do though, I guess I really should make a label for this bottle. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer. Excuse me, get to the layers. I think my layer, there they are. Create a new layer, and I'm going to call the layer 1 bottle, and I'm going to call layer 2. So I click on the layer and then I double click and it automatically selects the name layer 2, and I'm going to just start typing, and I'm going to call this label. Okay, now I would normally design something a little bit nicer, but we're just going to go with what we have here real quick. So let's say I know that the label falls between this anchor point and this anchor point here. So I may choose to use that, make sure Snap 2 is on, choose that to start my drawing of what this label is supposed to look like. So let me turn the grids so that they're behind. Right now I have my preferences for my grids to be in front of other things. So I went to Illustrator Preferences, and I want to put the grids in the back. There we go. I'm going to make this label, make it white. So I go to Swatches, make it white. Oh, I stroked it with white. I'll keep the stroke black for now so I can actually see my beginning and end. Now, just to make things quick here, I'm going to just put the word label in here and select that. I'm using Shift and Command and greater than to make this bigger. That's found on the period key. If you're on a PC, it's Shift Control greater than, and then Shift Control or Shift Command C to center it, and then Command T or Control T brings up the character panel. And let me just choose. Let me just choose a typeface that'll work. Do extra black there. Maybe not quite extra black. Let's just do bold. There we go. So this says label. I could put a design on here. Excuse me. Just to be quick, I'm just going to grab. Well, there's not a whole lot in the symbol swatches, so let me see if there's any interesting symbols here. Let's do mad science. Let's see what's in there. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there, so I'm going to grab one of these symbols and just throw it on there. Now, if you don't, what I'll do usually if I use a symbol in this way, I will right-click on this symbol and tell it to break the link to the symbol. It then becomes a graphic versus a symbol, and I can edit it if I want to. So, it's oftentimes what I'll do whenever I'm working with this kind of a thing. Symbols, I usually break their link to the original symbol so I can edit them. Okay, so they're no longer symbols, they're actually editable objects. Okay, again, I know this is not the best label. I should have taken some time to design it. Now let me outline this type just to make it look a little bit more like a label or like a type you would see. I'm going to outline that maybe with yellow, and let me go back to there, make sure that that is aligned on the edge. Well, I may have to convert this to outlines to outline that properly. The line stroke should not align to the center, because what it does is it bites away at the type and it looks really bad. So I'm going to actually take that outline off for now, because until I outline that type, or I'll just give you a little lesson in that. If I go right click on this and create outlines, before you want to do this before you put a stroke on it. Okay, don't do it afterwards, because then it'll outline the stroke. So I can right click on this and go to create outlines. Now I can put a stroke on it, and I can tell the stroke to be aligned on the outside. See how much more readable that is? So there we go. Might even change that stroke color so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, now that's not really the best design ever, but for a demonstration, it'll suffice. Okay, now the next step in creating this label, or making it so it'll go in the bottle, the next step is to grab everything that's in the label. Don't grab the bottle, and go ahead and maybe group that, and not sure why it brought that to the front, so make sure that's sent to the back. I think it is. Send it to the back. Try to group these again. There may be some sort of weird thing going on with those symbols I don't know about. Yeah, there is. I'll not group them. Gosh. Alright, so it doesn't matter if they're grouped or not. I just usually like to. Now, what I want to do now is go to my symbols panel and have all of this selected, and then I just drag it over here. And I can name it, label. You want to change this from a movie clip to a graphic. Make sure it aligns on the center. The registration is on center, unless you wanted to, when you're placing something, unless you want to place it, you know, so it's the upper left corner that it recognizes as the point of origin. But usually center is fine. And I hit OK. And now that whole label is a symbol. That's really important. Now, I can move that symbol off, away, maybe out to the artboard. And now I'm ready to work with just the bottle. Now, I'm going to color this something other than black. Make sure my fill is in the front. There we go. Black doesn't really show, when I do the 3D, it doesn't show the subtleties of the 3D. It won't show the lighting effects. So I want to fill that with a solid color. I want to go to Effect. I want to do a 3D. And on this particular one, because this is going to be a circular object, I don't use extrude. That's more for kind of squarish type objects. I want to use Revolve. Okay, so it's going to be like a tube type object. I want to hit Preview. Oops, that doesn't look very good. And the reason why it doesn't look very good is because it looks like a candlestick, and that's not what I wanted. What's happening here is by default, this is revolving from the left edge of this object right here. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to tell it to revolve from the right side, assuming you have drawn this item on the left side. I tend to work from left to right, so that's why I drew on this side. Well, what the offset is here, in case you need to know, if you wanted to make this more like a small, low profile jar, this will widen this. It'll stretch this out. So I can set the offset wider, and whoa, that's a little too wide, and it will look like a jar. Okay, so this is kind of cool. The only thing is I typically don't use that much because what will happen is it may create a hollow area down below. I don't want to have a hollow area. Now there's two things here. One is have your cap open, and the other one is have your cap solid. Now I'm fine with having the cap. I really prefer the cap open really for this, so it looks like it's opening anyway because of the way I drew it. So there we go. Open cap. Shading, you can play around with all sorts of different shading effects there. So I'm just going to go plastic because this is kind of more of a plastic object. And then this guy right here, he is the, it's kind of like a little view. I know it's a square, so, but this guy is basically how you can rotate the view of this object. Now, if I pull on it and go down, you can see the wireframe is moving down, and you can see that you can see down inside the bottle because this is an open cap. If I turn it just right, you'll be able to see the bottom of the bottle through that. Okay, and then if you want to rotate the bottle, excuse me, get this straight back up again. If you want to rotate the bottle, you have this. So now, right now, you don't know what front and back is. Obviously, the front is over here on this side. Based off of what this cube is showing. You can also do the rotations here, okay? If you want a 0 right there, or 1, or whatever, you can change this around too. Okay, now that takes a little bit of playing around with knowing where you're at and what degrees and things like that. So that takes a little getting used to. That at 0, see what happens. Should be straight up, but yeah, it always baffles me because I'm like, well, shouldn't 0 be a straight rotation? But I don't get this. Whatever the defaults were is probably where I should have stuck it. It's where it should have stayed. Okay, I think it's how much rotation from the previous rotation. That's why it doesn't seem like it's straight. Okay, so I'm getting that kind of straight again. Now, when you're ready to put the label on here, you want to map the art. But I'm just going to head and hit OK. Let me dismiss that. Hit OK, and we can see we have this bottle. Now, if you wanted to make this bottle more narrow, I'm going to grab my white arrow tool, my direct selection tool. I'm going to grab these two anchor points here, hold down the shift key, and when I move those over, oops, let me start moving, and then, oh darn it, do that again. I'll just use the arrow key. When I move that over, it takes the center of that bottle and it makes it more narrow, okay? So if you need a more narrow bottle, you can modify this 3D object after you've already rotated it. Now I also see now that this is too narrow, so I'm going to just select all those anchor points and I'm moving them. Now you can see that I'm creating an issue here, which I may have to look into. There we go. Well, the issue, I guess it's a non-issue now. Sometimes the computing power it takes to do a 3D object is pretty high, so it can do some weird things. Alright, so let's say that's good. Now, if you want to put the label on here, what you need to do is bring up your appearance palette, because you don't want to 3D revolve a 3D object. So this would be under Window, Appearance. And in order to edit a 3D object, first click on it, then go to the Appearance panel, click on 3D Revolve, hit Preview. It will remember what you did the last time. Then you want to hit Map Art. Now, Map Art, when you do that, it will tell you how many surfaces you have of this object. I have 11 surfaces on here, so right now it's showing the interior surface of the bottle. I don't want to put the label there. This one shows the interior neck of the bottle. This is the interior main body of the bottle. Notice how when I have an anchor point here and I have an anchor point here. This is kind of the main area where I wanted that label. So that's the surface that I'll be working on. But on the outside, there's another surface. This is the reason why I created this surface is because of the anchor points. So there's an anchor point here and an anchor point here. So there's a separate surface. So you don't want to just go and put in a bunch of anchor points down the bottom of this bottle. This is the bottom interior. This is the bottom exterior. The bottom segment of the bottom of the front of the bottle, and here we go. That's the area that I want. So knowing and understanding what these surfaces are is really, really important. Now I'm going to choose a piece of artwork from my symbols panel to put on there. So I'm going to go to Label. Now, the front of the label is the gray area, or I'm sorry, the white area. The back of the label is the gray area. You just think of the back of something as being shadowed. So I pop the label in there. May have to resize it a little bit. So I'm going to hold down Shift while I resize it. And I'm looking at Preview when I'm doing this. And there we go. Position it so it looks nice. There we go. So now I have the label on the bottle. When I like what I have, I can click on OK. I also might shade the artwork, by the way. That doesn't look so great. So I might go ahead and do that later. I might just change the light source. Hit OK. Here's where we can change the light source. We used to be able to do have some options there, so I guess I'll just leave that at plastic shading for now. Interesting. So plastic shading's fine. And let me go to more options. There we go. That's what we want. This is where you can add extra light sources, ambient light and stuff like that. So you can change your light intensity, your ambient light. If it's too much, you can take it down. Ambient light means how much light's reflecting around an object from the main light source, how intense it is, the highlight intensities. We can take that up a bit. and so on. So if you don't like your highlight to be very big, you can take it down. There we go, and so on. Blending step, how many steps do you want it in blending? Take that up, it'll smooth that out. It just takes more time for it to deal with it. So blending steps smooth out your gradients. Shade color, if you had this in a certain environment, let's say you had this in an all blue environment, you could change your shade color to a blue area so it would cast a little bit of blue on there. Okay, so that's what all that is. You can also add a new light source by clicking on the new light source button, and you might have some light coming from another direction. So this might look as if it's been a studio shot. I can move things around a little bit. There we go. Oh, that's too shiny. So you just kind of play around with that. Okay, so that looks pretty real, pretty good. I might put another light source in towards the bottom. I don't know, it may be too shiny. I wish we could put light sources outside this circle. Whoops, I just hit the trash can. That means I just deleted the light source. Okay, so that's good enough. I'm going to hit OK. And now I have a nice label on a bottle, and it looks fairly realistic through the 3D Revolve and then the label or the image mapping. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video and hope this really helped you out. Thanks.